I sat down to record a podcast, but this is how we ended up. So I'm gonna take a break with Rosie and we'll get back to you when she wants to get down. Rosie has decided that a bird is more important than laying on my shoulders, so I guess we're ready to begin. My name is Grace and this is the Grace and Pearls Knitting Podcast. So today I'm wearing my Hope Top that was recently completed using Santa's Garn, Tynn held single. I think I used like a US 2.5 or 2. I'll leave my Ravelry project page below. This is in the colorway Matcha. There's this lovely 2/2 detail that runs along the sleeve and then down the front. And then I also decided to carry it down the side, which I think looks really good. I was afraid with the Tynn that it was going to stretch out over time. And I wanted to use the side seam as a little detail to help keep the structure of the tee. This is super lightweight, it's super comfortable to wear. Occasionally my bra straps do poke out, but I think like depending on the bra type, it's totally bra friendly. This knit up like a dream. Obviously it's fingering weight and light fingering at that. So it did take some time, but I do love it. Anyways, let's move on. Ralph has made his presence known, and last week he snagged one of his one of his claws and the chair, and he was in a cone for 5 or 6 days, which was really sad. When cats wear cones, their whiskers, at least the cone that I had for him, touched the outside of it, so he was discombobulated and, you know, thrashing his head around and walking backwards. It was really cute, but at the same time pretty sad. It's all healed now. He went to the vet. We cleaned it up with some chloroseptic and he's doing much better now, but he was not a very happy camper for the past 6 days. The cats also turned 5, which is very exciting. I got them November of 2020 and their birthday was July 2nd. I don't know a whole lot about their kittenhood, except probably what happened is that a pregnant mom came in and was found, and then they were born. And I know there are a few other siblings, but Ralph and Rosie they were the 2 ones left when I was there in November, when I got them, and they're great companions, and I'm sure Rosie will make her presence known again. So anyways, that's Ralph's update and my update. Let's move on to finished objects. My first and only finished object is my Comebackigan by Andrea Mowry. This is using the Farmer's Daughter Fibres Juicy DK. This is in the colorway Boyland, and it's this lovely bright strawberry cherry red, and I wanted this done for the 4th of July, and I had it done for the 4th of July. I did add these buttons that I had at my local yarn store. They're very similar to the ceramic buttons that Andrea Mowry used, but these were local to me. They did have Holland Hoof Farm buttons at my store, but nothing that really matched my cardigan. And then I saw these, I think these were some Japanese buttons, and I added them. I did have a little bit of a mishap. Let's talk more about the project instead of going straight to my mishaps. This, I used, I think, a US 6 or 7 for my main detail. For my main needle, you start by knitting up the sleeves, and I used that more of as a gauge swatch. And what I ended up doing was putting it in the washer, and I noticed it, because this is a superwash wool, it grew quite a bit. I didn't put it through the washer. I hand washed it in the sink, and then I spun it through the washer, which I do with all of my knits. Use the spin cycle to remove a lot of the water, and then I laid it flat to dry. And I noticed that the sleeves grew quite a bit, and I was a little bit worried because I knew they were going to grow some, but not as much as they did. And so I just kept it, and then I started knitting the sweater. First you knit bottom up. So first you knit the button band, and then you separate for the sleeves, and then you work back and forth. And then eventually, once you finish it, then you attach the sleeves. And once I finished the body, I did the same thing. I blocked it the same way, and I like the way the body fit, but the sleeves looked a little big for me. So I was unsure how it was going to go. And so then by the time it was all blocked and I added the sleeves together, you end up sewing a seam here because it's bottom up. You attached to live stitches, and then there was a seam that Andrea had a tutorial on her YouTube channel that explained perfectly how to sew in the hole. And then I blocked it and I was like, you know what? I think I do want it a little bit more oversized. I ended up, I forget if I said this or not. I blocked it, laid flat to dry, and then I also blocked the sleeves and then put them in the dryer to see how much they would shrink. And they did shrink a good amount, like to where I was comfortable with them, but I liked the body the way it was on the laid flat to dry. So I reblocked the sleeves and they grew out again. So if anyone's wondering, you can do that with superwash. And then I added the button band, which took a while. I think the last time I was here, I was working on the button band, and it took such a long time. It was much thicker than the one that I was doing for the step-by-step cardigan, which you can see that in my last podcast. And then at the end, I was weaving in all my ends, and I snipped what I thought was ends that I had woven in and was just cutting off the end, but it was really, I think, a join in the ball of yarn that I somehow missed and didn't take apart. Usually what I do is if there's a knot in a skein of yarn, Ralph, we're gonna have to move you, I think. If there's a knot in the skein of yarn, then usually I take it out and then weave in the ends separately. I guess I didn't. So I cut those loose ends, and it started, like, I was trying to figure out what was going on, and it was slightly unraveling a little bit, and it was right at the bottom of the button band. I'm sure no one can really tell, except now that you're up close and personal. So right here is where it happened, and I tried my best to make it look good, but you know, it is what it is. From 5 feet away, no one will tell. But anyways, Ralph was knocking things over. So I was a little disappointed. It was like right at the end after I woven in, like, gosh, 25, 30 ends at that point, and I was a bit devastated. But anyways, no one will really tell, and plus the imperfectness of it all is what makes it unique, right? So I finished this cardigan, and just in time for me to wear it. I wore it to church today, and it was hot. I walked to church. I only live, gosh, less than a half mile away from my church. So I walked to church in it and walked home in it, and it was like 91 degrees out today, or probably at the time like 85, 86, but pretty humid, and I was dying. So anyways, came home and immediately took it off. So I might do that again here in a little bit if I start heating up a little bit. Okay, Ralph, we need to settle down. Let's move on to my works in progress. So first things first, we'll start with the Tolsta by Rebecca Clow, or the Cray Bear here on YouTube. This is knitted up using Juniper Moon Farm Zooey, and it is all tangled up. Here's my ball. This is a thick, thin yarn. I think it's technically sport weight, and I am using a US 5 to knit it up. I think before I was still working on the short rows, or just past the short rows, and I've now separated the sleeves and gone down maybe 5 or 6 inches, so it's well on its way. This is my easy peasy project that I do at work, or like I went to knit night the other night, and I brought it there so I could sit and chat. So it's just the easy peasy project. I did do a mid block. I don't know if you can really tell, but the stitches were a little bit more close together. Really, the gauge didn't change at all. For this block, I did end up putting it in the washer and the dryer. It worked out great. And so the stitches didn't really change in the sense of size, like my gauge didn't change, but they just bloomed a little bit, which was really nice. So that is a Tolsta tee, and this is Ralph again. I swear, every time I go to record, they are fast asleep. I'm like, great, this is a perfect time. And then they just make their presence known. So Ralph is just gonna hang out with us for a little bit. Next is my Seaton. So this is my Seaton pullover by Wallin. I think I talked about last time, the pattern to this is a bit lackluster. It's in a book, and there are only, I think, like 3 or 4 sizes, or maybe like 5 or 6, but that's a lie. It's like 4 or 5, 3 to 5 in that range. And the first size, the recommended circumference at the end was like 10 or 12 inches of positive ease, which I did not. So I ended up taking out 2 pattern repeats in the width of the body in hopes to get like a 3 to 4 inches of positive ease, which is much more up my alley. And I did that, but that means when I was separating for the sleeves and the top yoke of the sweater that I had to do quite a bit of math. So anyways, here is my Seaton. This is using Cascade 220. As you can see, I've gotten a lot further than I was last time. I finished a sleeve yesterday and I just started the other one today. So this is knit bottom up. What I did was a provisional cast on here, so I still have to add the bottom ribbing. Then you knit up and then you separate, add a steeked column to both sides. And then once you finish your steek, you then work the front and back separately. So you are doing some purling stranded color work. And then you add the collar, which I did the collar in the same color, like my same main color, which is Cascade 220 gray. And I'm afraid the collar might be a little bit small. It comes like right up at my neck, but I'm hoping with blocking, it'll stretch out just a little bit. There is you knit back and forth and cast off some stitches for the shoulders. And that was a very tricky part of the pattern. And I think I read it correctly, and I asked somebody else on Ravelry and they agreed with me. They're like, it sounds like you did it right. So if you want to hear, or if you ever make this sweater and you want a second opinion, feel free to message me on Ravelry. I will happily try to trudge through it again, but I confirmed what I was doing was correct. It was just like this and alternative rows, and I was like, is that 1, 3, 5, or is that like 1, 5, 9? And it was a little bit confusing. Anyways, in the future, if I were to make this again, instead of casting off the set amount of stitches, what I might do is make them more like short rows where you don't cast off the stitches, but you just wrap and turn and then move on. Then I could do more of a 3 needle bind off situation instead of seaming them together, because my seam is a little bit lumpy here. I'm sure it'll block out just fine, but it is a little bit lumpy. For the steeks, I prefer a sewn steek. If you remember my Iris pullover by Tynn Annalie, I did do a crochet steek, like a crochet reinforcement for that steek, but it didn't really work out as well as I wanted it to. It didn't hold the stitches as well as I wanted, and so I ended up reinforcing with my sewing machine. I just like it a little bit better. I know it'll work a little bit better. Maybe now Ralph will. I don't know if you can see him or not, but he settled down just behind me on this couch, and maybe that'll be better for him. Anyways, I like the way that a sewn steek looks, and it doesn't add much bulk like a crochet steek does. I still have to eventually tack down all of the, like, the steek is still like flapping around in here, and look at all those ends I still have to weave in. I already did all of the body's ends, which is great, but each sleeve I still have to do, which is super fun. I love weaving, and it's my favorite. Not really, I hate it. It's one of my least favorite things to do. I depending on the seaming, I don't mind the seaming. I just like weaving in ends. You're just so close, you know. What else can I say about this? Some of this, what I ended up doing was, the pattern is really hard to read on the book. So what I ended up doing when I first started my Seaton was I created a Google document, and I just transposed the book's pattern into like a color work motif. And I wish I could show you pretty much just like any color work, except then I changed the colors to be my colors, so I knew what it looked like. So instead of it being a bunch of symbols like X's and O's and filled in O's and weird shaded boxes, because it's a black and white book, I ended up making a colored version on Google Docs, and that worked out well, except I did transpose it wrong in a few spots. So I'm gonna have to go back in with some thread and fix the sections that I messed up. So anyways, I'm sure no one would really tell anyways, and I could just leave it and see if I end up being annoyed of the wrong color work charts. And even like this blue section, I forgot one of the rows on the way up, so then I just like skipped it the second way. It looks a little bit different than the other blue section, but like I said with my Comebackigan, you know, the imperfectness of it all is a reason why it's nice to wear handmade objects too. You know, it can't just all look store-bought. So I think that's enough for my Seaton. Next, I have a new cast on that I just casted on yesterday. So, and I really should go get my swatch, but Ralph has finally settled down. So I am test knitting a sweater for Tolsta By Rebecca Clow here on YouTube. And this is the Affric pullover. It is an all over color work jumper, and I was going to use my leftover Cascade 220 from my Seaton, and plus I had a little bit of Knit Picks palette that I didn't end up using for the Seaton, or a lot of bit of it. But my gauge was a little bit too off and too open. Ralph, you think you can stay there just for a little bit? Let's see. Usually he doesn't care if I sit up, so let's see. Stay there. Stay there. Okay. Lay on back. Excuse me. I tried. So this was my first colorwork swatch. This was Cascade 220, and my gauge is too small here. This is using a US 9, which is up from the 8 that I'm using in my Seaton. And I love the colors, and I would definitely use these colors to make a Affric eventually, but I just knew if I went up like 2 more needle sizes, it would still not be very good. So then I ordered some yarn, and I spent a good chunk of time over the past few days trying to think of what yarn I should use, and I ended up deciding on the Lettlpoi by Istex, and this is what I ended up with. So this is definitely a rustic yarn. This gauge was also too small. I used a US 9 here, but it was just barely too small, so I knew if I just went up a needle size, it would be okay. So my main color here, this like lovely rainbow color, is Milky Way. The main color number 1, this blue, is Fjord Blue. The gray is called Ash, and the pink is called Pink. And those are my colors. And I have just barely cast it on. So this is using a US 10. Let me untangle it all, which I think is like a 6mm needle. And this is what I have so far. If you can see, I finished the short rows, and I just barely started the color work chart. So this is a top-down raglan pullover. So there are color work charts for each size, and there's charts for the shoulders and charts for the front and back. Some parts have a chart for the front and a chart for the back and a chart for the shoulder, but thankfully my size is the same for the front and the back, and one for the shoulder, which they're very similar. And once you read, I think like each like pattern repeat of this pattern is 5 or 6 stitches, so it's easily memorizable. It's just making sure that you know exactly where to increase, but the increases, from what I can tell so far, happen at the same time, like with the shoulders as it is the body, at least for the beginning part of the section. So I'm looking forward to that, and those are all of my whips. Next, I've got that yarn that I was talking about from the Yarn Divas that I got the other week. Here it finally came. It was actually pretty quick shipping. So first I have this lovely Mirasol. It's 40% Pima cotton, 30% baby alpaca, and 30% merino wool. It is a fingering weight, and I have it in the colorways Goldenrod and Raspberry. And you're gonna notice a theme with my color selection.
I have one of the goldenrods and 3 of the raspberries. These are 75 grams each. So I was thinking about making a t-shirt with it. Either the Spring Fling t-shirt by Saskie and Co. Or I was thinking about making a t-shirt version of the GoldenFern or Goldenrod sweater by Jennifer Steingrass. She was having a sale like a year ago almost, I think. And I got a few of her patterns and I've yet to make one. And same with Saskie and Co. She was also having a sale and I got a few of her patterns and I've yet to make one. I have yarn for one of them. And so this may become one of those 2 patterns. Next, I have my camel yarn. I don't remember last time if I said it was camel or yak, but it's definitely camel. It's 30% camel and 70% merino. This is by Onion. And I think this is supposed to be like Aran weight yarn or a heavy, like a worsted weight. It says here 4.5 to 5 millimeter needles, which I think would be more of a worsted-ish weight. And it also is a very similar color. When I was looking online, I thought like this was a little bit more light. This was more true to this color. And then just wait till you see my next yarn. And I laughed when I saw this. I was like, what are you doing, girl? This, I'm thinking about making a Felix pullover. I think it would be nice and simple, where it can showcase off the yarn and not be too terribly complicated. This is a single strand, so I think a simple stockinette pattern in the round would be the way to go with this. And then next, I got the Fino Cirro. This is, I think it's just brushed Surrey alpaca, and yeah, 40% alpaca, 40% cotton, and 20% wool. So it should be, yeah, it looks like a heavier fingering weight. And I was thinking about holding this double and making a cumulus tee. The Cirro has a black strand. Let me see if I can, yeah, this is a single strand here. You see there's a black strand of yarn running through, and I wonder if that is the cotton or the merino. Anyways, I thought it was a very cool yarn, and I'm not sure if I would hold it single or hold double. I have plenty of this. I mean, the yardage is pretty good. For 50 grams, it's 225 meters or 246 yards. So, and I think I have like 8 of these or 4. I'm not quite sure, I forget. And so thinking more of like a cumulus mouse situation for this. I almost thought about holding it double. I do have some purple yarn I was thinking about holding it double with, and then I was even like, wow, it like really goes with this onion. I should hold it together. And I was like, no, leave the camel by itself. So anyways, that's what my plans are for this yarn. So I do have balls of the Lettlpoi I'll show you. I only had to get one of these pinks, so I've already broken into this. It was really hard to pull from the center with all of these. So my work in progress yarns have some yarn that's wound in on it. But these are my 4 colors. As you can see, I saw this Milky Way color and I knew, it's like, this would be awesome in a sweater. It's this lovely icy rainbow color that once you look far away, it definitely looks more baby blue than anything, but up close it's just makes me so happy. And my family is going to Banff this summer / early fall, and I figured it'd be really cool to take pictures of it in the glacier area. We'll see if I can do that. That's my goal anyways. My goal was originally to bring the Seaton, but I'm knocking this thing out, so maybe I'll bring both. We'll see how cold / hot it will be, if I can even wear a wool sweater. This Lettlpoi is quite itchy and quite rustic. I think I felt it at a yarn store once and I knew it was a little bit itchy, but when I got it here I was like, ooh girl, I'm gonna have to wear a shirt underneath this. So I'm sure it will probably soften up a little bit, but I'm betting it's not gonna soften up to merino anytime soon. So I'm definitely looking forward to this, and it's my first test knit. So far it's going pretty well. What's nice about Rebecca Close test knits is they go for a long time, so I have plenty of time just in case this yarn combination doesn't work out. But I'm really looking forward to it. And so far the group chat has been a whole lot of fun. Yeah, for the first time in 10 years, I'm doing a test knit. So very exciting. I almost did one, gosh, in college, but then I was like, you know what? You need to study for exams. You don't have time for a test knit. So anyways, otherwise in my life, not much has changed around here. It was just the 4th of July, which if you're in the United States, I hope you had some mixed feelings about 4th of July this year. I was quite upset the day prior with all these law changes. I do work in healthcare, so just like how devastating it's going to be for patients and for families and literally like everyone in the United States. But you know, there's only so much we can do besides, you know, voting and calling and doing all those things too. You just kind of feel hopeless and helpless. But thankfully this year we get to vote. And then next year will be the primaries, which will be very exciting. And then hopefully some things will change around here. So anyways, yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot recently, as well as there's the Texas floods and thinking of all those girls that are lost. And, you know, we still don't know a whole lot at this point, but like, will they ever find them all? I don't know. And that's just like heartbreaking. So anyways, I hope that knitting helps you, and I know it's a great escape for me. Listening to podcasts is a great escape for me. So hopefully in light of all the Debbie Downers I just talked about, you're still having a pretty good day. I'm hoping here we'll get together with my family, maybe go to the pool, do some fun, exciting things, maybe go for a run. But anyways, I hope your crafting helps keep you sane like my crafting does for me. Anyways, have a good week. I'll see you here in a couple of weeks, and take care. Bye-bye.